graduate freshman. And my hobbies, I like movies, work on the house, things like that.
How far have you gone to school, sir?
Some college.
And have you served in the military?
No.
Do you have close friends or family that are career military?
No.
The idea, well, a premeditated killing is a killing that a person intends to do so, and it's a conscious decision to kill, as we've spoken about in just the last few minutes.
Yes.
Does it make sense to you that the ideas, that the formation of intent and the conscious decision-making processes are operations of our mind?
Yes.
As operations of our mind, the ideas of intent and conscious decisions sometimes are not readily susceptible to direct proof. And what I mean by that is direct evidence, such as a pronouncement. As in my example of some type of business rival or whatever, where I pick up a knife and come across the room toward that person's and fatally wound that person with the knife. Direct evidence in that example would be some type of verbalization on my part. I'm going to kill you, or I'm going to stab you, something along those lines. Does that make sense to you, sir?
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever heard of the phrase circumstantial evidence, sir?
Yes.
Okay. On the issues of intent and premeditation and any issue for a jury's determination, the law allows the jury to consider circumstantial evidence, the circumstances that surround an event that may or may not let the jury infer or conclude what was going on in a person's mind. Do you understand the explanation?
Yes.
Okay. I'll move off of you and give you a break for right now, sir. Number 63. Tell us a little bit about yourself, ma'am.
I've been married for 16 years. I have 3 children. My oldest is in high school, and my middle 2 are in middle school, 2 girls and a boy. I'm employed full-time with the school district. I'm a principal secretary. I was a stay-at-home mom for 10 years, and then when my baby went to school, I went to work. In our free time, our middle child plays travel ball, so we spend every other weekend on a ball field somewhere in the state of Florida.
How's the ballpark food anymore?
We bring our own. We're active in our church, so Sundays we're not on the ball field, we're at our church.
And did you tell me how far you've gone to school?
2 years of college.
Okay, and have you or your husband served in the military?
My husband did.
For how long?
6 years prior to us being married.
Do you have any close friends or families that are, or close friends or people in your family who are career military? And what's your relationship with those ones?
My grandfather retired from the Marine Corps after 20 years, and then my uncle served 34 years with National Guard.
Do you recall whether or not their families had to move quite a bit?
My aunt and uncle did not. They stayed in the same town in South Carolina the entire time. My grandfather retired before I was even born, so I think that I'm sure they moved a lot, but I don't know.
Did you ever hear any stories or information about the difficulties of their career military service on the family, impact on the family, or anything like that?
No.
Ma'am, the idea that you can look to the circumstances surrounding events, circumstantial evidence, to try to infer or conclude about a person's intent or state of mind at the time. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Okay. Let me give you, again, another example that doesn't have anything to do with what might be the evidence in this case, okay? If we were walking down the street, you and I, approaching each other, darkened street in Ybor, And this may be a leap of faith, but assume that I look rather imposing, and that because of maybe the way I was dressed or whatever. And there's no one around, and I have a jacket on, and I step in front of you, I don't utter a word to you, and I do this, and I look at your watch, and I wave in this fashion. From those circumstances, is it fair for you to draw the inference that I'm intending to take, by whatever means, your watch from you?
Yes.
Okay. Would you agree that at least in that circumstance, you can infer my state of mind, my intent, what I was intending to do from my actions, even though I did not utter a word?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If you're selected to serve on a juror, could you consider circumstantial evidence on intent, state of mind, or any other issue?
Yes, sir.
Now, I'm not asking you to automatically draw the inference. As a juror, you can draw the inference or reject any inference from the evidence. That's your role as a fact finder. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Number 73. Good morning, sir. The concept of circumstantial evidence, is that something you can consider if you're selected as a juror?
Yes.
Okay. And would you agree that in some circumstances, it is capable of drawing inferences about what's going on in a person's mind at the time of an act, if the facts surrounding the circumstances are sufficient to draw that inference?
Yeah, I think circumstantial evidence has to be viewed very cautiously, though.
Okay, fair enough. And you're allowed as a juror to accept or reject any inferences from the evidence that you feel logic and your life experience allow.
Correct.
You understand that? But my question to you is, would you at least consider circumstantial evidence on the issues of state of mind, premeditation, and any other fact that the state of Florida has to prove?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. Could you tell us a bit about yourself, please?
Upon finishing high school, I spent 10 years studying to be a Jesuit priest. And during that time, I obtained a master's degree and spent 3 years working in South America for the Jesuit order. Afterwards, I left and joined the insurance industry, where I became an insurance executive for a major U.S. insurance company. I'm since retiring.
Okay. Married, sir? Single?
Married, widowed now.
Children, grandchildren?
3 children.
Have you served in the military, active service, sir?
No, my time in the Jesuits precluded that, but everyone in my family did.
Well, there's some school of thought that the Jesuits were a militaristic order. Right? Mr. Train and I are both products of that, so for whatever that's worth, right? Do you have any close friends or family that were career military, sir?
My niece's husband is currently in the Marine Corps and is a career Marine. And he's due to retire this year.
Did you ever talk with them about any hardships that the military service has imposed upon their families?
Yes, I have.
Thank you, sir. Number 39.
Here.
Good morning, ma'am. Please tell us about yourself.
I moved here 31 years ago. I have 4 grown kids, 16 grandkids. I went to Brewster Technical School in '95, and I worked for St. Joseph's Hospital for 18 years.
And what did you study in Brewster?
Phlebotomy.
Okay. What do you like to do in your spare time?
Camping and fishing.
All right. Do you acknowledge, or would you agree that in some circumstances you can conclude from how a person's act what's going on in their mind?
Yes.
In some circumstances you can draw those inferences, is that right? Would you agree to consider, at least consider circumstantial evidence if you're selected as a juror on the issues of intent, premeditation, or other issue that the state of Florida has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Let me ask the panel as a whole. The idea of circumstantial evidence. Is there anyone here who feels such disregard for circumstantial evidence that you hold an opinion such that you would never, ever consider circumstantial evidence in arriving at your verdict on any issue? Is there anyone who holds that opinion? Yes, sir.
I actually might, because I'm a cynic, so I question anyone's reasoning for anything that is done.
Okay. And that's acceptable. You're entitled to that view. If the state does present circumstantial evidence, though, is your view so strong that you will not even consider whether those certain facts allow you to draw the inferences as to what's going on in a person's mind or any other legal issue the state has to prove?
Maybe.
Okay, thank you, sir. I appreciate the candor. Let me ask it the flip side, the converse. Can everyone here acknowledge to me that you will at least consider circumstantial evidence on any of the legal issues the state has a burden of proving beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt? Can everyone agree? Yes. You are always free as a juror and as a collective jury to draw those inferences or to reject those inferences that you can from circumstantial evidence. Does that make sense to you?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Number 40.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, sir. Can you tell us a bit about yourself?
I'm single, but I don't know by the state I might be married. I've been with her for 17 years. I got a 16-year-old.
About time to get off the fence, but
Sorry, I got a 16-year-old and a 6-year-old little boys. My father was a 26-year Air Force, served in the Gulf War and so forth, so I've been in military life. Been in Tampa since '88, traveled abroad and so forth.
as a child, did you have to move quite a bit? Okay. Did that cause hardships on you or your family?
You know, maybe at the start, but you get used to it.
Learn to cope
You learn, yeah, you adapt.
as a family and...
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right, thank you. You heard of the term motive, sir, before?
Yeah.
Motive,
Yes,
you know, what's the reason?
Yes, sir.
What's the reason? And of course, you can't turn on a cable channel now without seeing one of the true crime stories or investigations or, 24, 48 hours or anything like that. Would you agree that it's human nature to want to know the answer to the why question?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's just something we look to understand. It's part of kind of our thought processes. Would you agree?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The judge is going to give you the instruction of the law on what must be proved beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt by the state of Florida before a jury can return a verdict of guilty of premeditated murder. And one element that you will not see in that jury instruction, one element that the state of Florida never has to prove in a first-degree murder case is motive. The state of Florida does not have to prove to you beyond and to the every reasonable doubt the why answer that as human beings we all kind of expect. If, in fact, you are instructed on the law of premeditation and there is no burden of the state proving motive, can you accept that
Yes, I can.
and not impose upon the state of Florida what the law does not, meaning you won't hold the state to proving beyond a reasonable doubt motive when the law does not. Can you promise me that you can do that?
Yes, I can do that.
Okay. Sorry. Number 55.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, sir. Tell us a bit about yourself.
I'm retired, 30 years as a national sales manager, traveled around the United States. Divorced. I have 2 daughters and a son, 5 grandchildren. Enjoy, I'm a fanatic golfer, bike rider. I went 2 years of college. In 1969, I tried to enlist in the Marines, was a field school reject. And since I'm retired, I don't read papers, I don't watch news on TV, it's just too depressing. But I thoroughly enjoy my life.
Great. Good. I hope that's in my future. Not the enjoyment, the retirement part. Do you have any close friends or relatives that are career military?
No.
Do you agree with what I've been talking about just recently, that it's kind of our human nature to want to know the why, the motive to any act, whether it be a criminal act or
Yes.
any act, maybe in a relationship or business or whatever?
Yes.
Can you accept that the state of Florida in a premeditated murder case is not required to prove the why, the motive behind any killing?
Yes.
Thank you. And could you follow that law, if that's the law that's instructed to you by the judge at the end of the case?
Yes.
Despite the fact that you may want to know why, you can follow the law and only hold the state to the burden of what the law requires that we must prove.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. I want to make sure I don't repeatedly talk to someone that I've talked to before. Number 61.
Yes, sir.
Have you had any difficulty hearing us throughout this morning?
Well, I'm understanding you fairly well, but I haven't understood 10 words the judge has said in the 3 days that I've been in here.
I don't know if it's appropriate for me to comment on that.
I've got this dime store hearing aid here that is marginal. It might help a little bit.
Okay. Sir, if along those lines, if you're selected as a juror, and because...
I would ask for a hearing accommodation in that case, and I apologize for not requesting it 7 days in advance, but I didn't realize that my hearing has deteriorated that much. I've been in for jury duty 3 times in the past in Hillsborough County and did not have trouble hearing.
Some people say that your condition is appropriate for contact with an attorney. But I won't go any further with that. Sir, I'm not making light of your problem there, but if you're selected to serve as a juror, and if at any time there is any difficulty with hearing what the judge says, will you promise that you will bring that to our attention so that it can be readily and immediately addressed?
I will do so.
Okay. Thank you. Can you tell us about yourself, sir?
Oh, let's see. Born and raised in Hagerstown, Maryland. Went to school in upstate New York. Lived 15 years in the far backwoods. Kind of had enough of that, so I moved to Florida. I've been here about 20 years. I seem to get tired of places after about 10 or 15 years. Been in Florida about long enough, but Florida's been very good to me employment-wise. Next place I'm going is New Mexico after this.
Very well. Can you tell us what you studied and what your degree was in college?
I have what they call a distributed studies degree, chemistry, physics, math. A little bit of graduate work during that time.
All right, sir. Thank you. The same type of questions I've been speaking about motive.
Motive, I do not require the state to prove motive. There are so many things you see in the world today that the motive seems incomprehensible, even were it known. That's not an issue. Circumstantial evidence, I'm familiar with the term and can weigh it in a decision. I do feel that circumstantial evidence about, for example, a person's physical presence on a scene requires a lower standard than circumstantial evidence about a state of mind, but I do acknowledge that there can be circumstantial evidence leading to an opinion about state of mind.
Okay. And thank you for saving me several questions. But along the lines of your last thought, sir, whether it's based upon circumstantial evidence or direct evidence or a combination of both, the state of Florida's burden is always to prove the elements of a crime beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt.
Yes, sir.
You understand that as a kind of the foundation, the premise?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. Let me ask the entire panel that question along the lines of motive. Does everybody acknowledge that it's kind of ingrained upon us to know that why, especially in a criminal act and maybe in other facets of our life? Does that make sense to everybody? Is that okay?
Yes.
If you are instructed of the law of premeditated killing, first-degree murder, and you do not see that the state of Florida is required to prove motive, can everybody accept that? Yes. Let me ask you the converse of the other way. Is there anyone here who will, regardless of whether it's in the jury instructions or not, will hold the state to proving to you beyond a reasonable doubt the motive for a killing when the law does not? Is there anyone who holds that opinion? Okay. Everybody would want to know why, but you won't require that as an element of proof. Is that fair enough? Yes. Okay, thank you. Number 7. Ma'am, good morning. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Okay, I was born in Cuba. I was raised here in Tampa. I have an associate's degree plus. I've been in the title industry for over 40 years, currently sort of semi-retired. Don't have any children. I was divorced in 2001, but I have 3 nieces, grandnieces and nephew that I go to the ball games and go to school and read and things like that. Hobbies. I love to read, I like to sew, I love to cook.
Okay, thank you. What did you have your AAA in?
Psychology, and I go further, and then I started working. So I got sidetracked and changed and started taking real estate law courses. But I had a major in clinical psychology and a minor in American history.
Was your husband in the military?
No.
Okay. Were you ever in the military, ma'am?
No.
Do you have any close family or friends that were career military?
I had. They've all since retired from there. A cousin who was actually with the Pentagon. She was in the Navy and international law. And a friend who was reserves. He was a judge advocate for a while.
Did you ever discuss with any of them any of the challenges or difficulties that career military service could have on a family life?
No.
Okay, thank you. You've heard me talk about reasonable doubt. The judge at the end of the case will give you a definition of reasonable doubt. what that is. And that's the law that you must apply to in your deliberations and when you determine whether the state has proved its case sufficient for conviction. Do you understand that?
Correct, yes.
Okay. That is the burden of proof. That's the standard the state has to meet in any criminal case, regardless of the severity of the offense, whether it be a shoplifting case or a economic crime, a fraud, or a murder. Of course, the evidence will be different, but the standard of proof is the same, beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt.
Yes.
Does that make sense to you, ma'am?
Yes.
Now, of course, I haven't told you the definition because that's left for the judge's instructions. But in part it says it's not a forced or imaginary doubt.
Correct.
Okay. Now, obviously, a charge of murder is the most serious charge that any governmental agency can accuse someone of. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. Would you agree that as a juror, you would hold me to that standard and no higher standard because it is the most severe
Yes.
charge?
Yes.
Okay. You'll follow that law and hold the state to the legal burden that the law requires.
Yes.
Thank you. Ma'am, you may hold your back. Thank you. You thought you were going to sneak by. Ma'am, number 9, can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm born and raised in Florida. Worked for Publix supermarkets for 26 years. I trained managers for Publix. Went to college, have a bachelor's in mass communications, public relations.
What do you like to do in your spare time?
I like to travel. I like to ride my bike and spend time with family, my dog.
What type of dog?
He's a little terrier mix.
Okay.
I'm into the rescue thing, so
All right.
no purebred.
Did you understand and agree with all the concepts I was talking about before, motive, circumstantial evidence, those issues?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And if you're selected as a juror, would you agree that you would hold the state to the burden the law requires, the burden of proving beyond a reasonable doubt, and not impose something higher like beyond all doubt or a shadow of a doubt? Those phrases you see on some of the talking heads on TV, you would hold us only to that standard the law requires?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Sir, number 10, could you tell us a bit about yourself?
My name is number 10.
It's a very depersonalizing process.
I was born and raised in South Florida. I have a BS degree in mathematics from Florida A&M University. When I left there, I started to work for a company called the Airport in New York City as an actuarial student. I left there after about 15 years and went to work for a company called Dun & Bradstreet. Retired from there, and on a bet, I taught math in school for
How'd
6
that
years.
bet go?
I lost. But I've been married for 38 plus years. I have 5 kids, 4 grandkids. I enjoy playing senior softball. While I hate the game of golf, I enjoy playing it. My closest,
A lot of us understand that.
my closest thing to the military is 2 years ROTC. I have neighbors that I know are military people because I see the flags on Veterans Day. However, I don't have any conversation with them about what they did in the military or what.
Okay, sir, thank you. Can you promise you'll hold the state of Florida to burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt and no higher?
Yes, sir.
Any questions or concerns about the concepts I've talked about so far, motive, premeditation, intent, circumstantial evidence, those things?
No, sir.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am, number 11, can you tell us a bit about yourself?
I'm born in Bosnia. For 20 years.
Okay, ma'am.
Bosnian,
Yes.
ex-Yugoslavia, and I lived 20 years ago, and I married for 24 years. I have 2 kids, my son, my daughter. I have a grandson, and I am working. I like work.
How far did you go to school, ma'am?
Middle school.
Okay, ma'am. Your English is excellent, and I don't take anything from this, but do you have any difficulty understanding what's the English language as used in the court?
Yeah,
You can do that?
yes.
Okay, thank you. Will you promise to hold the state of Florida to proving the case beyond a reasonable doubt and no higher standard?
Yes.
Thank you. Do you have any questions about motive, the issues of motive and premeditation, circumstantial evidence I've spoken about?
Yes.
Do you have any questions about that?
I know this is what happened in terrible case.
I'm sorry, ma'am. I didn't quite hear you.
I know this is what happened and a terrible case.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. On the kind of the legal issues that I've spoken about, did you understand the explanations and the examples?
A little bit.
Okay. Did you have any difficulty in understanding my explanation?
Yeah.
Do you have any specific questions about any of the explanations I gave on any of the topics?
Yeah.
Do you have any specific questions you'd like to ask me on any of that?
No.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Number 12, please.
Born in South Korea. Here for the last 10 years of my life in Florida. Graduated Brandon High School. Did some college, dropped out. Wasn't for me. Did Aviation Academy, studied I enjoyed boxing and recreational shooting.
Okay. You indicated your father was career military?
Yes, sir.
Were you required to move quite a bit as a child?
Yes, sir.
And was the family, did that cause any additional stress or difficulties for the family?
Not really. I was born into it, so it just became the norm.
Okay, sir. Do you have any questions of any of the subjects or concepts that I've spoken about?
No, sir.
Are you comfortable with the explanations I've given and the law I've discussed?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Number 14, ma'am. Good morning.
I have lived here for 8 years after living the majority of my life in Kentucky, as you probably tell with this accent. And I'm married 43 years. I have 2 sons. I have a master's in education and taught school prior to my children being born, and then I never did go back to work, so I retired at an early age. And I enjoy reading. I'm very involved in my church. And I have an uncle who was a career service. And
did you ever speak with, did your uncle have family that he
had a
raised?
wife and 2 sons.
Did you ever speak with them about the
A
military
little,
service?
but not much. I was younger, so I heard a few more. We're in Germany, so we have better speak now.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any questions about any of the concepts we've talked about?
No, sir.
Would you agree to hold the state of Florida to the burden of proving the case beyond a reasonable doubt and no higher burden?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Number 15, sir, can you tell us about yourself?
I completed 1 year of college, then went to work for a power company for 20 plus years as operations and maintenance. And left that, worked power line construction for a few years, and currently employed as a driver trainer for a large trucking company in the state of Florida. Divorced about 4 years. Hobbies, boating, motorcycles, reading, my dogs.
Okay. What type of dogs, just out of curiosity?
Newfoundland.
Okay. Great. Do you have children, sir?
No.
Okay. Have you served in the military?
No, sir.
Do you have close friends or family who have been career military?
I have friends that have been in the military, not career military, but have served, yes.
Okay, do you have any questions about any of the concepts or principles I've spoken about so far?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. Ma'am, number 21, can you tell us about yourself?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Born and raised here in Tampa. Graduated high school, 2 years Air Force, 1 year reserve. I have 7 children, 2 stepchildren. Married 16 years, widowed 10. I drive a school bus, 18 years. My hobbies is sleeping.
Just so you don't practice
My brothers, and reading.
Do you have any questions about any of the legal concepts we've spoken about in the last several minutes?
No, sir.
Would you promise to hold the state of Florida to its burden of proving the case beyond a reasonable doubt and impose no higher burden than the law requires? Okay. Would you agree with the simple concept that the violent death of any person is tragic? Would you agree that several among us hold as even perhaps more tragic the death of a child?
Yes.
As you heard from the summary or the statement of facts that the judge read to you at the beginning, the two individuals who were killed and named as victims in this case, Felix and Gold Schenecker, were young teenagers at the time of their deaths.
Yes.
As a juror, you're not required to check your emotions at the door. You're not required not to have a human response to any testimony or to any evidence you hear. The American justice system, as flawed as it may be, is built on the idea that it is a human system based upon the application of logic to the law as exercised by humans, by people. All that being said, the fact that the two victims in this case are children, is there any, and you have several children and grandchildren yourself, is there anything about that that you think is going to be so overwhelming to you that it will prevent you from being a fair and impartial juror?
It might. It probably, I'm just saying, yes.
Okay. And I thank you for your candor. You think, is it such of a consideration for you that it may prevent you from giving Schenecker a fair trial as a result of your feelings in that regard?
At this point, it would probably be a problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
It may affect your ability to give her a fair trial?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for your candor, ma'am. Number 22. Ma'am, can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Yes, I was born and raised in New Hampshire. I came here to Florida for college. I have a bachelor's degree in biology. I've been married for 10 years. I have a 6-year-old daughter and a 2-year-old son. I underwrite life insurance. And my hobbies, I guess, is mostly just spending time with my kids. We're very active in our church. I do volunteer with our youth group. I like to read, ride my bike, and things like that.
Do you have any questions about any of the concepts I've discussed about the law itself?
No.
You've just indicated that you have 2 children yourself, rather young.
Mm-hmm.
With all that I've said, that nobody is going to expect you as a juror to be some mindless automaton without feeling. Is the fact that the 2 victims in this case were teenage children, is that going to affect your ability to serve fairly and impartially in this case?
I think it makes it harder, but I don't think that I don't think that it would be unfair.
And ladies and gentlemen, nobody is going to minimize the significance or the potential difficulty of serving as a juror in a murder case. And so when I follow up with some questions, I'm not belittling what you've indicated about that it's hard, but I want to ask you whether that difficult, you think, will be something you can emotionally and logically deal with so that you can look at the evidence in a dispassionate sense? And what I mean by that is in a logical sense to determine whether the state of Florida has proved its guilt, proved the defendant's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt.
Sorry, can you say it again?
Probably not.
I got lost.
Maybe I did. Even though it might be difficult for you because there are children.
Right.
You think you're personally capable of basing a verdict solely upon the evidence that is presented?
Yes.
And not give the state of Florida maybe a break or hold it to a lower standard because there's kids involved? Could you promise that you wouldn't do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I can, yeah.
Okay, is it? And you know, lawyers, when they hear I think, we take it as equivocation or maybe uncertainty. But I understand it can be common colloquial language. Does, when you say you think, in your own mind, do you have any uncertainty?
I mean, I'm not in that position yet. I haven't heard everything, so it's hard for me to say, but I certainly would, you know, if I was called to a jury, I would take it very seriously. I wouldn't be there as a...
And that's kind of the unfairness of asking these questions at this juncture, because it's all hypothetical
right.
at this stage. And I guess what we're trying to do is just get a feel for what your mindset is at this time. And last question, I won't badger you anymore. Is there anything about that fact that you think would make you an unsuitable juror to serve in this case?
No.
Thank you. Number 23, please go on.
Yes, sir. I'm married for 23 years. I have a 22-year-old son. I am a claims adjuster in the insurance industry, and hobbies, I'm a part of our youth ministry group, and I'm a mentor to troubled teens.
Thank you, sir. Your education?
High school.
Have you ever served in the military?
No, sir.
Do you have any close friends or family that are career military?
No, sir.
I'm sorry. Number 22, I didn't ask you that. Have you ever served in the military?
No.
Any close friends or family that have served as career military?
Yes, my husband's father was, although he got out when my husband was very young. And my cousin, her husband, has been career military for a number of years.
Have you ever discussed with him the challenges or difficulties such life addresses the family?
A little bit. My cousin is currently separated from her husband because of it.
Thank you. Sir, I interrupted you. What do you like to do? You sound like between work and the ministry and mentoring that you're having active life. What do you like to do in your spare time?
Spare time, I'm with our Christian Motorcyclist Association, and we go to different rallies and things like that and try to bring people to Christ.
Thank you, sir. Any questions about any of the concepts we've talked about to this point?
No, sir.
The fact that you're actively involved with youth and that the victims in this case were teenagers at the time of their deaths, is that going to affect your ability to serve as a fair and impartial juror in this case?
No, sir.
You won't, so to speak, cut the state some slack on its burden of proof merely because the victims are kids?
No, sir.
All right, thank you. John may not even have, I'm not sure if I've asked you this. Have you served in the military?
No, sir.
Do you have close friends or family who have served as career military?
No, sir.
Thank you. Number 25, sir, tell us a bit about yourself.
I grew up in Polk County, born and raised in Polk County. I left the state for a year and a half to go to Tennessee for college, dropped out, came home. I was married 9.5 years, recently divorced. I have 3 children, and I'm a farmer.
Okay, sir. What do you like to do in your spare time?
Mostly spend time with my kids. I have passes to Busch Gardens and Venture Island. I take my kids. They do karate, music lessons. My dad was in the National Guard 29 years. My uncle and cousin, my uncle's recently retired Army and my cousin is in the Army currently for life.
Your father was 29 years in the National Guard?
Yes, sir.
Of that time, do you have a sense of what portion of that time he was active duty and held up, so to speak?
Yes, sir. He was active for about 4 years, and then National Guard, and I was real close to my cousin. I'm real close to him, and he's serving right now overseas.
Have you ever talked to did you have to move around a bit or anything?
No,
with
sir.
the National Guard?
No, sir.
Have you ever talked with any of the other folks you mentioned who are career military about any of the challenges or stresses of military life upon the man?
Yes, sir. Yes, they move quite frequently.
As the statement of facts that the judge advised you of inferred, the Schenecker family was a military family at the time. Is there anything about that that's going to affect your ability to serve fairly and impartially about that, that you have some friends who are career military?
No, sir.
You have children yourself, and it sounds like you're actively involved in their lives.
Yes, sir.
The fact that the victims in this case were children at the time of their death, adolescents, is that going to affect your ability to serve fairly and impartially in this case?
No, sir.
Can you hold the state of Florida to its burden of proving beyond a reasonable doubt the defendant's guilt by evidence in court?
Yes, sir.
Ms. King, number 29. Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you tell us a bit about yourself? And I know you're kind of far away, so please proceed.
Well, I was born in upstate New York. I moved down here 3.5 years ago with my husband. We've been married for 5.5 years. We don't have any children, and it's trying. Every cat, all rescues, all were in bad shape when we found them, and we got them back to health. We have a real baby. I love hockey. Obviously, I'm from up north, so hockey's a big thing.
Hockey and cats.
Hockey and cats in video games.
Okay.
Oh my.
All right. Okay, ma'am. Have you ever served in the military, or your husband?
We have not.
Do you have any close family or friends who are career military?
Not career.
Okay.
My father's 100% disabled.
From the military?
From the Navy.
As a result of active duty?
Yes.
Do you have any questions about any of the legal concepts I talked about, reasonable doubt, motive, circumstantial evidence, that kind of thing?
No.
The fact that the victims in this case were children, is that going to affect your ability to serve fairly and impartially?
I honestly can't answer that.
Okay. Would that present any type of difficulty?
I was close to asking my husband to take me to the hospital.
As a result of?
Thinking about how I want a baby and I can't have one.
I understand, ma'am. I'm sorry for that. Is that something that's weighing heavily upon you now?
It is.
And would it be perhaps, would you better serve as a juror in another case, ma'am?
Probably would.
Okay, thank you for your candor. I'm sorry for upsetting you. Juror number 112. Yes, ma'am.
I believe everybody should have a fair trial, but I'm the same patient she's too. I cannot have
Ma'am,
she's no pain.
ma'am, I'm sorry that I have to ask just a few questions. It appears you're very emotional on the subject of the fact that the victims were children. Is that correct?
Continue to ask questions. Yes.
Is it, do you think it might cause you not to be able to give Ms. Schenecker a fair and impartial trial?
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm sorry to upset you.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm aware of the time you've been sitting there some time. I'm going to give you what will be about a 20-minute morning break. Pay close attention to me, please, as we take these questions. I'm just going to remind you about those important instructions, not to discuss the case among yourselves, not to discuss it with anyone else, and not to discuss anything we've been doing here, that is the questions and answers, the process itself. Not to discuss that among yourselves with anyone else, including friends or family members, not to allow anyone to discuss it in your presence. Not to read or listen to any reports about the case from any source, not to speak at all to the attorneys, any witnesses, defendant, until the deliberations are finished. Of course, not to read or listen to any reports about the case from any source. I'll emphasize that again. Not to do any research, gather information, communicate about the case or the people or places involved through any means, including all those electronic devices. With that, we'll give you about a 20-minute break. All right. Panel has exited the courtroom.
State of Florida moves for clause for number 29 and number 112 for the same reason for both, that each lady said as a result of the fact that the alleged victims are children, and they were quite emotional in stating, saying that they would not be able to be fair and impartial and give Ms. Schenecker a fair trial.
Defense?
Judge, I agree with those cause challenges. I would also move for cause on juror number 21, who said that she could not sit in a case of children, as well juror number 22, which I believe she was equivocal, she was vacillating between, she wasn't able to say for certain whether she would be able to sit on a case involving children.
Number 21, we'll hear from the state. Well, first, as to 29 and 112, we're going to grant the state's motion without objection from the defense on the basis indicated. Now I'll address number 21, state, the defense motion.
And I wasn't prepared to address anything other than the two ladies. Oh, yes, okay, 21, the state of Florida agrees.
All right, 21 on motion of the defense without objection to the state. Basis indicated is excused for cause. Now as to 22.
22 just said, indicated, as my recollection is, that it would be difficult, that she could do it, and she would still hold the state of Florida the same burden and still give the defense a fair trial.
All right, thank you. The defense motion for cause on number 22 at this juncture is denied.
Judge, can I just put on the record what I have reflected that she has stated?
Well, go ahead, counsel. I think the record is replete with exactly what she said.
Okay. I believe that what I have indicated that she told the state is that she thinks she can, and the state Mr. Kerner tried to speak to her to get her to say whether she thinks she can was just some statement or whether she could say for certain. She said it would be hard for her to say, and then she went on and said that she would take jury service seriously and that she thinks she can be suitable, but she never gave a definite answer about cases involving children being able to sit on those.
All right, thank you. The record will speak to exactly what she said. The one thing she made clear is even though the children involved, she's capable of basing the verdict solely on the evidence in the court. She used the term harder, but since she doesn't think she'll be unfair, and accordingly, again, at this juncture, without more, the cause challenge is to 22, since the state objects, is denied.
Okay, I may have one more, but I'm not sure if it's premature or not. As to number 11, the lady from Bosnia, she indicated that she was fluent and okay with the language, but many of her responses were non-responsive, directly illogical from my questions. Do you have any questions? And she would say yes and smile. And
Your Honor, I'll join in that motion. I agree. I believe that from her responses, it's uncertain whether she completely understands the question.
Well, if you listen very carefully to her, she also acknowledged some difficulty in understanding in addition to the obvious. Motion of the state joined by the defense. Number 11 will be excused for cause. Counsel, it's my intention to go ahead and make clear that they can be advised with thanks outside that they are excused discreetly. And that would include, to make clear, earlier we dealt with number 123. So at this point, the following individuals with thanks can be excused: number 123, number 11, number 21, number 29, number 112, and again, I already said 123. He was the gentleman at the outset. Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead and give you the remainder of this break. We'll be coming back. I believe my calculation has it at a quarter hour.
She said she didn't.
Juror.